Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And today's range report is on a really amazing and awesome rifle. Today we're taking a look at the LMT Sharpshooter. This is a reference rifle, or a civilian version of the L129A1, which is currently the DMR, or designated marksman rifle, of the UK military. LMT recently won this contract, and like they have with other contracts they have won, they have released a limited edition for the civilian market, and that is what this is. It is chambered in .308 and built off a AR-10 style receiver. Now, this gun is right up the alley for the types of guns that I enjoy shooting, collecting, and reviewing, because it has military provenance. But I'm just an average gun guy. I'm gonna save some of you some time, because I know if you watch this review, you might be expecting a review where I take this thing out to 1,000 yards. Well, I don't have access to a 1,000-yard range. I only have access to a 100-yard range, and I always review guns from an average gun guy's perspective. So, if you're looking for something more specialized where this thing is taken to its limits, you might want to click away the video. But if you're still interested and want to see my perspective, I really appreciate that. But before I get into the things that I like and don't like about this rifle, as always, I want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this amazing rifle who lent it to the channel. He's a good friend and supporter of the channel. His name is D. D, thank you so much for lending such amazing guns for me to review. I always want to thank my Patreons, as always, because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here. Thank you so much, Patreons. You all are awesome, and you guys get to see these videos early. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor for every range report, because he provides the ammunition, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And if you're watching this review, I know you like high-end performance firearms, and you probably have an amazing collection of your own. You probably have some pistols in your safe that are heirlooms or barbecue guns, and you're thinking to yourself, man, wouldn't it be nice to have a set of wood panel grips that have a custom logo, an engraving, or some type of custom texture, or maybe even made out of an exotic wood? Well, Brownworks can hook you up. Mark over there is an artist. He's a craftsman. He is always innovating, creating grips that no other company makes. Every grip he makes is one of a kind, and he can make grips for guns like CZs, Colts, SIGs, just to name a few. I know that I'm rolling in some footage of his best work. Anything you can think of or want, I guarantee you he can make. As you can see, he offers laminate woods, and he even offers grips for, yes, modern sporting rifles, AR-15s. No other company is offering that. So I'm gonna ask you guys to go check out his website. I'm going to put a link in the comments section below. Go over there, see what he has to offer. I'm also going to put a discount code for 10% off your first order. Go over there. If you don't find what you're looking for, make sure to contact Mark. He will hook you up, and please tell him the Texas Gun Vault sent you. Alright, so once again, let's talk about what this rifle is. It is a .308 chambered AR-10 made by Lewis Machine & Tool, which is the civilian version of the DMR, or designated marksman rifle, of the UK military, the L129A1. Now, the owner of this rifle has set it up a very particular way. Up here in the front, we have an AccuTac bipod. We also are running an Aimpoint T2 and a Aimpoint magnifier. Now, I think this gun would be much better set up with a scope, but he recently purchased this and just threw these optics on it. So that is how I'm going to review it. And only reviewing this at a 100-yard range, I think the red dot will be just fine with the magnifier. So let's go over the things that I like and don't like about this gun. And this list is going to be very long, especially when it comes to the things that I like. First, it's an LMT, and if you guys know anything about LMT, they make amazing AR-15s, and they are not cheap either. Honestly, I think when it comes to production modern sporting rifles, LMT makes some of the best. The owner of the company is Carl Lewis, and he has been working with militaries for years when it comes to designing rifles. So the quality that goes into this is outstanding. When you hold this and look at it, you look at the finish, you look at the build, you just know this thing is is quality. There's a few other companies out there that I won't name that make high-end AR-15s. They just don't finish them and put them together as well as LMT. You look at this and realize it's a serious rifle for a serious collector or a serious shooter. I also love the fact that their lowers are ambidextrous. Now, because this is the larger AR-10 style lower, it is not the Mars L. I'm not really sure what they designate it as, but you have all those ambi controls for the bolt catch, the magazine release, and the safety. So if you're right-handed or left-handed, or depending on your shooting style, you got tons of options there. Now, when it comes to the design of this rifle, I really like the fact they used the original AR-15 design from Armalite, which has the reinforced receiver extension. You can see how this break in the receiver between the lower and the upper is slanted, and that reinforces the back. Now, unlike AR-15s, AR-10s are not universal. So some companies make them to different dimensions, and some people refer to the other dimension, which looks much more like an AR-15 receiver extension, as a DPMS style. So it's more rounded, but this has the original Armalite. So I think that reinforcement really goes a long way in making this a more durable rifle. And although I'm not going to be using them today, this rifle does come with a very nice set of LMT iron sights. Their iron sights are simply awesome. Right now they're just backups. I'm not going to use them, but those LMT sights are great. And even if you want to pick up a set of those for your rifle at home, they're quite expensive, but they are absolutely outstanding. They remind me a lot of the Knight's Armament backup iron sights, but I think they're a little bit better quality. Now, something I think that a few of you are not going to like, but I personally like, is the fact that the handguard has M1913 rail all over it. The bottom, the sides, the top. There's no M-lock. Now, I like M-lock. However, when it comes to a designated marksman's rifle, you want as few variables as possible when it comes to the attachment points of accessories, whether that be bipods, scopes, you name it. I like the fact this has rail all the way around it. You get a lot of rail space. You can put a lot of things on there, and I think it's the most secure way of attaching accessories to your rifle. I also think it looks really nice. So having that rail over the M-lock on this application, I'm a big fan of. Something else that I really like on LMT rifles that always seems to come stock on them are these really nice two-stage triggers. These things are absolutely outstanding. I have a Mars L lower receiver that has just a great trigger in it. This one is exactly the same way, and I would assume that a gun that is designed for long distance shooting, right out of the box, LMT is going to have a finely tuned trigger, and that is what you get with this rifle. But when it comes to compatibility, this does use the SR25 style of magazines. Another thing that is different between AR-10s is the magazines. Now, originally when Armalite, or the new company, came out with modern AR-10s, they used variations of the old M1A magazines in .308. You guys know those are the civilian versions of the M14, and this is back during the 1990s, and those magazines were plentiful, but unfortunately we had a magazine capacity limit here in the US. But because those were so plentiful, they were able to modify those to work in AR-10 receivers. But later, Knight's Armament came out with SR25 pattern magazines, which I think are a little bit more reliable. And these work with those. So this is a Magpul magazine, and I really like the fact that it has that type of compatibility, because those old magazines are now a little bit rare and a little bit more expensive and less reliable. Finally, this gun also is accentuated in some flat dark earth furniture, and you guys know that I'm a big fan of FDE. I think that's just the coolest color to put on a rifle. I know a lot of people want black. I totally get it. I just like FDE. Who knows, maybe one day my tastes will change. But now let's talk about a couple things about this rifle that I don't like, and they're going to be very small details. The first thing is the engraving. Now, this gun is called the sharpshooter, so they put this thing right there, the sharpshooter, on the side of the receiver. Now, that is laser etched in there. Now, personally, I would like something that looks a little bit more militaristic. I wish it could say L129A1. I don't know, that just looks kind of like a billboard to me. It's done in a nice font. It's definitely crisp. I would just want something else besides that. The only other thing that I could give a little bit of a gripe on is its weight. But being a DMR, this is not a gun you're going to necessarily carry into combat. This isn't an AR-15. But even holding this thing up for a while, it is heavy and it wears on you over time. But luckily, I'm going to be shooting this from a bench. But the weight of this rifle gets to you. It's a hefty, hefty rifle. All right, so let's get to the range. I've never shot this. I don't even know if this thing is zeroed. So I'm going to walk this target out. We're going to start out at 25 yards. Yes, just 25 yards. I'm going to shoot for the top left target on the paper. I just first off want to see how this thing shoots, what the trigger is like, what the recoil impulse is like, and of course, start to zero in this red dot because I don't know how it's going to perform. I don't want to go out to 100 yards and be way off and waste a bunch of ammo. So here we go, 25 yards, top left target, just to see how this thing shoots and where this red dot is. So let's start there and let's get my initial impressions. All right, so that is the exact type of group I would expect out of a rifle like this at this crazy short distance. Now remember, I'm running a magnifier with the red dot, and the red dot is 2 MOA, but with the magnifier, it makes it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go ahead for the next round and adjust the red dot. But how did the gun perform? Obviously, we had no issues. A couple things really surprised me. Number one, the gun is a lot louder than I was expecting. I've shot a lot of 308s, and for some reason, this thing is pretty darn loud. It also has a larger recoil impulse than I was expecting. However, it's more of a thud than a sharp recoil. Think of it more like shooting a 1911 versus a Glock 17. It's a little bit slower action and you feel it a little bit more, but it doesn't hurt more. It's more of a soft thud than a sharp recoil. That did surprise me, and I can tell you this trigger is absolutely fantastic. This thing is a lot of fun to shoot. But if this was my personal rifle, I would probably be running this thing with a suppressor. That's obviously what this thing most likely was designed for. All right, so let me adjust this red dot. I'm gonna put up another target, go for the top left target again, and let's see if I can get this group to be a little bit more centered before I put the target out at a further distance. And with a little adjustment, I got it doing just what I wanted it to do. So now it's time to go out to 50 yards, double the distance. And now I'm going to go for the top right target and make sure that this aim point is still zeroed. And of course, as the target goes out, this magnified dot starts to cover up more and more of this target. So let's see how it performs and if I can keep it zeroed. And as I push the target out further, those adjustments become more pronounced. So I need to dial this one back just a little bit, but obviously I'm getting a good group. I'm very happy with that. So let me go ahead and readjust it. I'm going to put up another target. I'm going to shoot for the top left. And yes, I know this is a tedious process. It might be a little bit boring to you, but I want to show you how I go through this, how I review these rifles, and how I walk this target out, especially if I'm shooting at 100 yards with a red dot. So here we go, 50 yards again, top left target. And let's see if I can dial it in a little bit better. And that's a lot better. And I have to tell you, at this distance with the magnified dot, that 2 MOA dot is now covering up that red center to the target at 50 yards. So I'm doing my best to get it right in the center of that target. All right, so I'm happy with that. So now let's go out to 75 yards. And at this distance, the dot is covering up most of the center of the target. So I'm really going to take my time here. I'm not going to adjust the red dot anymore. And let's see what happens to this grouping. Now I have to tell you, at this distance I cannot tell where the rounds are impacting the target, and the dot is pretty much covering up most of that target. So I'm just trying to be as consistent as I can in the placement of where that dot is and hope for the best. And wow, am I impressed. Now, of course, if you had a scope on this thing, it would be much better. But for a magnified red dot, I am really happy. All right, so now without further ado, let's go out to 100 yards, the furthest that I can shoot at this range. I can already tell you that at this distance, the dot covers up the whole target. And I'm gonna shoot 20 rounds, and I'm gonna go for the center targets below the top two, and you guys can see the results. So let's see what 20 rounds at 100 yards with the dot covering up the entire target, and see if this thing is consistent. And man, I am really impressed with what this thing can do with just a magnified red dot. Can you imagine what this thing would be like with a really nice Night Force scope on it? It would be unstoppable, and I can definitely see why the UK military adopted this rifle. Now this is way more rifle than I would ever need, and this is a way more accurate rifle than I could ever be as a shooter. So as a collector, as an average gun guy, this thing is freaking awesome. It's amazing. It's a much better gun than anything that I could possibly get out of it. So this thing would virtually take most of my human error out of the equation. And this is a gun that is designed for marksmanship, for accuracy, for consistency, and because it's a military contract rifle, it's one of the most durable rifles out there. This thing is designed to take abuse, because I can only imagine what this rifle in the field is going to have to endure. And that's what LMT builds these things for. So as a collector, this thing is awesome. I could probably never use it out to its full abilities, but to own one of these would be absolutely amazing if I could personally afford it. So that's why I'm so thankful I have such amazing subscribers like D who lend these to the channel. So thank you so much, D. So what are my final thoughts on the LMT sharpshooter, the civilian version of the L129A1? Well, I think you guys can tell that I am gushing over this. This thing hits all the buttons for me. Military provenance, awesome company, just super accurate, amazing trigger, Great color, every accessory that I could possibly want on it, every feature I could possibly want on it. The only thing I would change, of course, if this was mine, is I would have to buy a really nice scope. But I know D has an amazing scope collection, so I'm sure he's going to throw on something really nice on this thing to really get its full potential out of it. But I just reviewed it with a red dot, and it worked great. So for me, just going to a 100-yard range or a 200-yard range, this thing would be so much fun. It's amazing. So I think you guys already know where this is going to fall on my star system. This is going to get a perfect review. 5 out of 5 stars. I wouldn't expect anything less. LMT, I really think, has hit it out of the ballpark. And some people are going to ask me, would I rather have this or an HK-MR 762? Well, I gotta tell you, I would much rather have this rifle. I think this thing is way cooler. I think it's actually a little bit more affordable. I think it's better built. It's just simply awesome. Yeah, LMT, you hit a grand slam with this thing. Wow. Man, this is a gun that I would love for my personal collection. And I say that a lot when it comes to D's guns, but man, this one might go right to the top of the heap. What an amazing rifle. So wow, LMT. And if you guys ever get a chance to shoot one of these, you definitely need to. And I'm sure you guys, especially that do longer distance shooting, could get much more out of it than what I could show in this video. Just simply wow. So 5 out of 5 stars, the LMT sharpshooter, the L129A1. What a cool rifle. So what do you guys think? This thing's pretty awesome, isn't it? I hope you enjoyed this review. Sorry it was a little bit tedious, and it's not something that I think I really got its full potential out of because of just where I can shoot and the types of reviews that I make. But I hope you got something out of the review anyway. So let me know what you think in the comments section below. And as always, thanks for watching.